right. Once again, welcome everybody and have a wonderful good evening here from Vienna, 8 p.m. where we are. Juan, I know it's much earlier over where you are. We're just going live on Facebook, and we will also be going live through Instagram in a short while. I'm super glad to see so many familiar faces and all you guys joining us yet again for another Light 'em Up session. And I'm very glad, I'm honored and grateful to introduce our special guest for tonight. It's Juan Martinez from Joya de Nicaragua. And Juan, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure having you. And thanks for taking the time. I know you've got plenty on your plate now in these challenging times, but thank you so much for all the effort and joining us live tonight.
Oh, thank you, brother. Okay, first of all, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Maybe just turn it a little louder or speak a bit louder, then I guess it's easier to hear you.
There. Let me, thank you for having me. It's quite an honor, especially to see so many familiar faces over here. Guys, it's my heart just pounded to see all those faces at home. Reinhard from Dubai, Scott from the UK, Ricardo in the UK, Alan. Guys, it's Johan from Austria. It's beautiful to be here. In fact, yeah, it's noon, 12:07 here in Nicaragua, and as you can see, it's still daylight here. Anielo, brother, good to see you, my friend.
As always,
Juan, ciao.
Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to raise your questions, put some comments into the chat box. You can also let us know where you're joining us from. Also, all you guys over there on Facebook, please feel free to put your questions down in the comments, or you can send us a direct message and we'll make sure that your voice is being heard and your questions are being raised to Juan. Juan, I would like to start tonight's session or today's session with a couple of little quotes and some beautiful sentences that I read in the book that you just made available to all the cigar community. And in the beginning, it says, to all those whose lives have been touched by Joya de Nicaragua, all those whose life we have yet to touch, to all of Nicaragua, we are proud to carry your name. And indeed, the history of Joya de Nicaragua and the country itself is so closely interwoven. I would like to know, what does it mean to you to have such a special standing in the country's history and to carry that proud name into the world with your beautiful products?
It's well, I'll start at a personal note. I think that is precisely what puts me in this place. That's precisely why I decided to join my family and my father in this enterprise of working in an industry that allows us to take the name of our country with a product around the world. Some of you have been to Nicaragua, those of you who haven't. Nicaragua is a relatively small country. It's located in Central America, and it's generally known for not so many good news. Yeah, historically, we've been known for because of revolutions, of natural catastrophes, hurricanes, earthquakes, civil unrest, civil war during the 80s. But the reality is that Nicaragua has much more to offer than just its history. You know, we have many great things, not only locally, but also to the world. We have some of the best products coming from Nicaragua, from the best cocoa beans, using the best chocolate bars in the world, to the best rum in the world, to some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, some of the richest culture, and of course, nowadays, the best cigars in the world. And to see how nowadays our products are recognized by many of you, both in the media, but also by many consumers as the best cigars in the world, just fills us with not only joy, but with excitement. There are not a lot of products made in Nicaragua, made with Nicaraguan hands, that can be, enjoyed in more than 90 countries around the world. And just by the fact that some of you are here today, especially in Europe, under the circumstances that we are at this moment. Enjoying this product makes us feel proud, makes us feel excited, and most importantly, makes us feel grateful. Grateful because obviously you guys trust our products, trust our workers, trust our personnel, and that every cigar that we make lives to the standard that we promised. You know, to see when I started about in 2008 was when I officially began my life in the cigar world, joining my father in the company. Nicaragua was still up and coming. We still were on the back of the list. We were close to, I think, Honduras in terms of production, but we weren't as we are today, you know, the popular country. And to see the evolution that this industry and these products have achieved in the past 10 years have been marvelous. And not only in terms of the products, but also in terms of the people, getting to know people in our industry, like, you know, everybody who's down here dedicating their life to producing world-class cigars, like Jonathan Drew from Drew Estate, like De Garcias from my father, like Plasencia, Nestor, and getting to know all of these people has been fully enriching. And it makes me feel really proud. It makes my family feel really proud, and makes everybody at Joya de Nicaragua feel very proud and grateful. Because as we have a big logo in our factory floor that says that we take the name of Nicaragua around the world. And not only us, to be fair, it's everybody in our industry. We have great cigar makers. Of course, as you well mentioned in the book, we were instrumental in beginning this, but nowadays it's more of a collective effort than just one name, one family, one brand, one company.
It's wonderful to hear, and this is also exactly the idea of this wonderful community here. What we try to bring to the table with Light 'em Up was, especially in these challenging times, to still be united and stand together as a global cigar family, and to gather people from all over the world. And it really is a global movement now, with you know, all the comments in the chat box where all the guys are joining us from on a regular basis, and then even on Facebook we have a couple more. So that must feel like a big responsibility to you as well, right? Carrying that name and carrying that legacy. How do you feel about that weight on your shoulder?
Well, the good thing is it's not only one person, so it's a collective, and I think part of that weight is also carried by the people who are in front of us. Scott, Abdo, Raed, Johan, Anielo, all of these guys that ultimately put the face of our brands and our companies to the consumer, to the trade. Sometimes it's even more their burden than ours, you know? They have to deal with trying to convince people that these cigars are really what we promise them to be. And they are the ones, to be honest, that have done the hardest work. That it's, especially in Europe and in Asia, having to convince people or trying to invite them to try something different, because they've always been used to certain type of products coming from certain places in the world, and to try to convince them that there exists something else, not to replace that original product, but to complement it, to make, you know, their smoking experience more enriching. You know, it's a collective effort, and we wouldn't have done it if it wasn't because of all of the makers. Of course, all of the boncheras, the roleras, the tobacco growers in the field have been instrumental in growing the best tobacco in the world. Then the cigar makers making the best cigar in the world, and then having the people committed to our products, to promote it, to sell it, to convince their customer. I see Scott Vine's smirk under that beard, because he knows how difficult it is or how difficult it was to get this product into the shelf in a traditionally, you know, Cuban-oriented retailer, and now people having, you know, having the best of time of their life with the diversity that we can offer. And that's not only in our trade. We have Ricardo here, who is our representative of the Nicaraguan embassy in the UK, and he's sort of done a spectacular job in promoting our country, but also specifically our industry. And I can only remember last year, it seems a while ago, but it was fairly recently, that we were in the Ritz, London, one of the most exclusive places in the world, in a secret garden, and we were opening up together a a diplomat cigar club, and we had ambassadors and members of parliament from the UK, but ambassadors from many places around the world. And everybody there was enjoying and convinced that the product that they were enjoying was fantastic. And we were able to talk about the culture, the heritage. We were, enjoying the best chocolate in the world, with the best coffee in the world, with the best rum in the world, all coming from Nicaragua. And this was an effort by Ricardo, by Scott, and by the rest of the team. So in reality, our work is relatively simple compared to what you guys have in front of us. I know the guys from the Leaf Masters in Dubai are doing an extraordinary job, because that's another place where it's very challenging. So it's fun because you get together a lot of talents, a lot of creativity, a lot of humbleness, but also a lot of ambition. And I think that what has driven all of us here has been that drive to get this product to people's hands and making people enjoy it.
Well, I fully agree. And you mentioned some diplomatic aspects here, and I see you smoking the numero uno, which also has sort of a bit of a diplomatic background and story to it, right? Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm gonna, because we all have, we're in the comfort of our home. I'm gonna share the whole story about this product, and this goes against probably my marketing team's advice. But this story in particular shows off one of the most interesting things about this industry. So Joya de Nicaragua has been around, as many of you know, for more than 50 years. But especially in the past 15 to 20 years, we've had a good collaboration with our state and our foreign office. They would always come to us and they would ask us to share our products. They would come to, the chocolate makers, the rum makers, and they would say, I'm going to a diplomatic delegation in, the Emirates, or I'm going to China, or I'm going to Japan. Can I bring a gift from Nicaragua? And we would gladly provide them with cigars. At that time, we hadn't thought it really well, so we would give them whatever we had, and we would give them, a box of Antaño d'Arco Rojo or Antaño 1970, which are, very bold, robust, full flavor, but also full strength cigars. And they would take them to, a Chinese diplomat or a Russian visit to Nicaragua. And, wow, we don't know. One of the hardest things is to give a cigar is that you don't know what the preference of the cigar smoker is, or even if they smoke at all. So a while ago, we decided to use one of our blends and to adapt one of our blends to make a cigar that was, a good gift, that was enjoyable by cigar lovers, but also that was enjoyable by people who never smoked cigars. And we came up with this diplomatic cigar that had no brand. It only had a blue and white band, and it came in a special 3 or 6 count box that we made with the Nicaraguan emblem. And this was the gift that ambassadors would get, or foreign delegations would get when they visit to Nicaragua. This was a while ago. This was never a blend that was made to win any awards or any recognition, because we were not thinking about that. We were just making a cigar that would be enjoyable for everybody. So 2018 comes, and one of our partners in the United States is asking us, we need a cigar for events only, meaning that we're going to hold Joya de Nicaragua events all over the country, and we need a cigar that people cannot find anywhere, just like a gift, like an incentive. Okay, so we go over and we start looking, and we don't find anything that would say we can deliver in time. So let's use this that we already have in stock, because we already had that product in stock, and we start shipping it with the same band in bundles for events. So you could only get it in events. And, people start smoking it, people start enjoying it, people start going to events, and eventually some retailers get it on their hands. They start writing to us and they say, I want that cigar. No, you cannot have that cigar because it's not made for selling. Eventually, a couple of media got the cigars. They went to one of our events. They got the cigar. They enjoyed it, and they rated. It got a good rating. The first time we saw the rating was the typical reaction of, damn, good rating, even if we don't sell it. That's good. It passed. Eventually, a lot of people got their hands into the cigar. The cigar was appreciated by many people. And then in January 2019, I got a call from Charlie Minato from Half Wheel, who's a good friend of ours as a media. And he said, you know, you got the best cigar of the year. With what? I asked. With Numero Uno. I was like, you're kidding, man. We get the #1 cigar of the year by a reputable magazine or media, and we don't sell the cigar. We actually don't sell the cigar. So what do we do now? So it was the first time that they gave a cigar, a #1 cigar, to someone, to a product that's actually not available in the marketplace. And you can imagine, everybody starts asking for the cigar. I want to have the cigar. I want to buy the cigar. I want to sell the cigar. So we rushed the development of the brand. It already was named Numero Uno, so we just amplified the brand and created this beautiful artwork. And we shipped it by the middle of the year. And the irony of this product is that, unlike many of our blends, we didn't sit down and thoroughly think about the consistency of the blend, the flavor profile, the complexity, and the ingredients like we would usually do in a regular brand, because we were not expecting to sell it. Now, one of our most exciting and best-selling cigars in the world is a cigar that we gave it the least efforts. Not that it's not a bad cigar, not at all. It's a great cigar. It's a fantastic cigar, but we just didn't think about it as we would have done in another brand. So the lesson for us was that sometimes simplicity and good, it's better than perfect. We got it there. People are enjoying it. We are selling. It's a limited production. Unfortunately, we don't produce a lot of it. It's limited. And hopefully this year we're going to be doing some interesting things with that brand. Even last year, we continued to get great awards, great ratings from Cigar Dojo and from other magazines. So, here it is. That's the long story for this cigar. And it's called the Diplomatic Cigar because of the original reason that I mentioned, that we were giving this cigar to diplomats around the world. And that was a great story to share with the world. It is actually the cigar that we used to launch the UK Diplomat Cigar Club last year that we mentioned.
So in comparison to that, how long does it normally take for you to come up with a new product, a line extension, to develop the brand, the blend, until you have the final cigar in hand?
The line extension per se, it's the easiest part because you already have the core blend, the core ingredients, and you're just expanding or extending that blend into a different size or shape or whatever format you're going to be doing. So that's not as complicated. Developing a brand or a blend completely new, it's more complicated. It takes more time. You have to understand what tobaccos you have available to use, how those tobaccos complement each other or interact with each other. So it's a process that can take, if it's quick, it can take between 8 to 12 months. If it's slower, it can take 24 or months, because you start by working with each ingredient by itself, testing this varietal, this origin, or this crop, depending on the year. You start smoking, then you start adding, then you start subtracting, and then you develop an initial batch of blends. Generally, in our case, every factory does it differently, but in our case, we generally work with 5 original blends, from which we choose 2, from which we start improving, iterating. So we decide what we want to achieve with that particular blend, and then we start growing from there. You particularly are smoking Antaño CT. That blend took us roughly 24 to 26 different samples to be made in order to get to that final blend. Each cycle generally lasts between 3 to 6 months because you need to let the cigars rest once you've made the samples, and then you go to initial production. So it lasted from the moment we started developing the product to the moment it reached the market. I think it was 2018. I don't remember if it was 2000. I don't remember what year it was now. 2018. 2018, we introduced it. We started developing in late 2017. So we were smoking samples in the beginning of 2018. We gave people trying samples during our visits to Nicaragua in the first part of 2018. And we had final blend decision by the end of 2018 for a product that reached the market by mid 2019. So it takes a long time when you compound it. Sometimes it's quicker depending if you already have, a particular preference. For example, we had Antaño Gran Reserva, which is basically an extension of the Antaño 1970 blend with tobaccos that are more aged. It's basically the same blend, so we didn't have to invent anything new. We wanted to keep that core. But in the case of Antaño CT, which is a cigar that we wanted it to be a super full-bodied Connecticut, we couldn't achieve it as easy. And I've told this story in the past. Generally, when you develop a full-bodied cigar, you focus a lot on the tripas, on the ligeros and the visos, which are the ones that contain the flavor, the nicotine, and the strength level. But you also focus a lot on the wrappers. The thicker the wrapper, the more maduro the wrapper, although not necessarily, but generally, especially with the Nicaraguan wrappers, these wrappers tend to be full-bodied. So if you want a full-bodied cigar, you would use a lot of Nicaraguan ligeros, ideally grown in Esteli, which are the thickest, sweetest, but also most intense, powerful tobaccos. You would complement it with a Nicaraguan wrapper, for example, a thick ligero wrapper that would get us a full-bodied cigar. Let's say Antaño Darko Rojo. It has 2 leaves of ligero from Esteli, and it has a very high priming, very thick Corojo wrapper. That will give us a full-bodied cigar. 6 out of 5. When we go to a full-bodied Connecticut, like the Antaño CT, for example, this one, we wanted to have the same profile of the Antaño, but with a Connecticut shade wrap. And everybody has tried to work with Connecticut and make the next full-bodied Connecticut. The problem is that Connecticut shade, if you know the tobacco, if you unravel a Connecticut shade cigar, or if you see the leaf by itself, tends to be very thin, very delicate, very silky. It's a beautiful wrapper, but it doesn't contain the energy or the power that a Habano Criollo wrapper would generally contain. So it doesn't matter whatever you do with the fillers, if the wrapper doesn't add or help with the power, you won't get the strength level. So we would wrap and wrap and wrap and do different samples of Antaño CT, and we would never get the level of power that we wanted. So Mario, for those of you who know Mario, who's our factory manager, he said, guys, there's so much we can do. This is the white man can't jump project. Be clear that we will never get the amount of power that we want. So ultimately, we instead of getting to 100 that we wanted to get, we got to 90, and it turned to be a perfect, a beautiful cigar. That it was even named the best cigar of the year last year by Half Wheel and by other media. So for all purposes and intents and purposes, it was a successful cigar. But it took us that amount of time.
I think it's beautifully balanced when you consider like these wonderful, creamy, very lush tones that you get from the Connecticut wrapper. It's that oily, silky, creamy sensation on your palate, but still then you get the full-bodied nuances and the depth in aroma and flavor underneath, and it plays really nicely together. One point that I find highly interesting is that you mentioned you're working on like with 5 base recipes and 5 blends at the beginning, and then you take more of an iterative approach and you start to build around that, right?
Yes. Well, as I said, everybody has their own methodology of working. Some people are more thorough, some people are less thorough, and they have an idea of what their ultimate goal is with a blend. In our case, we sometimes apply that methodology of starting with the ingredients, especially if they're new ingredients. If there are tobaccos that we haven't worked with in the past, tobaccos that we haven't experienced with in the past, if there are tobaccos that we've been working with for 20, 30 years, we already know how they behave. Mm-hmm. This is like, cooking. You already know what your ingredients are. You just need to play with them in order to get the final product balanced, flavorful, complex, aromatic, and all of those great things that we look for in the cigar. But if it's a new component, for example, to give you an example, we've moved from dedicating most of our production to using Nicaraguan tobacco, Nicaraguan grown tobacco, using various wrappers, to having diversity in terms of profiles, using tobaccos from different origins. We have a special family of cigars that's called Joyas that uses tobaccos from multiple origins. And when you're using tobaccos that we haven't played with before, that we do start very thoroughly iterating. You know, if we're using a Mexican wrapper that we haven't used before from the San Andres Valley, or from a different grower, or from a different crop, because sometimes some crops are not available, so we need to change and adapt. We start playing. In 2014, we started growing once again our own tobacco in Jalapa, and we had 2 varietals that we were growing back then. And it was until 2018 that we were able to start using those tobaccos in blends, because they had to age. So in 2018, we started working with those ingredients and seeing how those ingredients would react both to our existing blends and to new blends. And it took us a while, because on the first round, some of the tobaccos were not behaving properly. Eventually, they improved, and now we have some of our great blends using those tobaccos. So it's almost a combination between science and art. I think many other cigar makers have used that expression in the past. It's neither science nor art, but it's both. You want to have, and it's like cooking. I think most of you have had more time to cook now and improve your own techniques. And that's what you do in cigar making. You a little bit of science, a little bit of art, combined with a lot of tradition, a lot of experience, and a lot of knowledge. And of course, a lot of love.
That's always the most important aspect, right? As in cooking. Juan, we have so many questions coming in here at the chat box, but also over on Facebook, of course. Steve Saka is joining us, and we say hello to Mr. Saka. He had a question for you. Why do you think Joya de Nicaragua hadn't received as many accolades until recently, given the fact it is the original Nicaraguan cigar factory?
Thank you, Steve, for that question. Always controversial. I think there's a combination of factors, and I'm not gonna beat around the bush with this one. And the fact that Steve has decided to work with us for a few years ago has helped us quite a lot, precisely because he has been able to get our products to the hands of people who generally wouldn't smoke Joya de Nicaragua, and including the media. And the fact that people are curious to know what else we are working with, and to be fair to Steve, he has gotten many more accolades than we have, but it's for both benefits, because we work together for many of his products. So one of that is being able to get the cigars to more people, to more media. Over the past 5 or 6 years, we've gotten a more aggressive push to interacting more with the media so that they can get their cigars and enjoy them. Another reason is that indeed we are making better cigars. Not that in the past we weren't making great cigars, but as we evolve as a factory, and as we get to know more people and learn more techniques from Steve, from our clients around the world, we are improving ourselves. So every year, if you visit our factory, you'll see new processes, different processes, improvements. Every year it's a slow process, small details, but small details that contribute to making your product better. I also think that it has to do with the excitement of the brand. Over the past few years, we brought to the market new brands that are less traditional, more exciting in terms of the message, and the work that our marketing team has done, that has allowed us to, bring a little bit of more of noise to the brand. In 2018, we were able to bring back to the attention of the industry the role that Joya de Nicaragua has played, not only in its brand itself, but in the whole industry and the whole Nicaraguan industry. And I think people started to notice that a few years ago. And it's fully understandable, because when you think of a relatively old industry, we've been around for many years. So many exciting and new things coming out, especially in the United States, that they enjoy and appreciate a lot of the exciting new boutique things, and so many spectacular cigars coming out there. It's hard to compete, and that's a fair answer. It's hard to compete with the Steve Sackas in the world, but it's also hard to compete with the Nicolas Melillos or the Caldwells or everybody that gathers people's attention more quickly, with the Roma Craft of the world and with the AJs of the world. AJ, he's a dear friend. He's a great guy, but AJ has exploded over the past 10 years. He started his factory somewhere between, I think, 2007, 2009. I'm not sure what year he began, but that's relatively recent. And all this along, Joya was in the marketplace, and people were asking for what's new, what's exciting. So I think there's no one precise reason why now Joya de Nicaragua has gotten more recognition, or why it hasn't gotten enough recognition, if I go to this question precisely. I think it's a combination of all those things. Not removing, I think, and as I said, the fact that we have so many great partners around the world that have done great work of promoting our brand and getting our brand to the retailers, from Austria to the UK, Switzerland, Spain, Italy, all of these places. They have also done a great deal of the work on making people demand the product and enjoy it.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think the wonderful thing about the cigar industry is also that it is sort of a family, right? And with all the brands, all the people behind them, they all do a great job. And what we're all trying to do is take the industry as a whole to another level, and then there's room for everybody. I mean, there's always room for improvement for all of us, but ultimately, on a global scale, we are trying our best to all together take the cigar industry to new heights, right? We had a great question from Roy. Speaking of new releases, Roy, would you like to bring up that question for us, please?
I can hear the question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, sorry. When we were talking about the Uno earlier on, are there any plans to release any different vitolas of that particular blend?
Yes, we have plans. We're only looking for one size, which is the regional size. But we are planning in this year to extending it. We've gotten some people asking for some exclusive sizes, but we'll probably be introducing a new size for everybody to enjoy. This is a particular blend that doesn't play out well in many sizes. We've experimented with this blend in different shapes, formats, and ring gauges, but unfortunately, this is not a cigar that plays really well in big ring gauges. So anything above 50 with this cigar, you lose a lot of the flavor and the complexity just because it's a relatively mild cigar. So you end up having a mild, big cigar. So we are working with smaller ring gauges in different lengths to see what is the appropriate size. We already have a few sizes selected that we'll probably be introducing later this year to extend the Numero Uno family.
Perfect. We had another question coming in from Sam.
Yeah, hi there. Well, I guess to start with, the construction of a cigar is more discipline of the cigar maker. But in terms of the flavors of a cigar, how do you maintain that from one batch in 1 year and another 2-3 years down the line?
That's a great question. Yeah, the construction, there are two things, there are a lot of things, variables in cigar making, but the two more important things is, one is the technique. And the technique has to do with the burn, the distribution of the tobaccos, to guarantee you a proper construction, the good aesthetic of the cigar. The aesthetic of the cigar is fundamental, though some people undermine the importance of the aesthetic. But the aesthetic also is the result of the great cigar, a great made cigar. The technique is very, very important, and it has to do with the ability of the cigar makers, of the bonchera and the rolera and their supervisors to guarantee the cigar itself. The consistency of the blend, although it's related to the technique, it's a different story, because it has to do not only with how do you construct the cigar with the leaves that you have, with the ingredients, if you wish, but how do you guarantee that the ingredients, knowing that the tobaccos are natural, are organic, no chemical, no additives are added to these leaves, but they also come from the ground, where different years have different climatological conditions. The tobacco growers generally improve their own technique to improve the quality and the yield. So they may use different, agricultural products to enrich the soil. Sometimes the variety of the seed can be improved to make it withstand certain sicknesses or certain plagues or certain conditions of the environment. So how do you guarantee that the ingredients that you use, meaning the tobacco leaves, combined together allow you for the consistent blend? So the question that we ask ourselves is, first, what is the profile of the cigar that we want to preserve? So we talk about strength, we talk about the flavor, the primarily flavor notes to it. We talk about the body of the cigar. We talk about the look of the cigar also, because we want to make sure that the cigar is consistent also, not only in its flavor, but also in its appearance over time. We want to make sure that the cigar, the Antaño 1970 that you bought in the year 2006 is as close to the cigar Antaño 1970 that you're going to be smoking in the year 2020. And we want to do it both in the aesthetic of the cigar, but also in the flavor of the cigar. So that's the hard part, because one of the things that you need to guarantee is that you have enough tobaccos available to withstand any potential risk of shortcomings in the tobacco. So when we buy tobaccos, we generally, or when we grow tobaccos, we generally grow not for 1 year of production. We buy or store tobaccos for multiple years of production to make sure that we can guarantee the consistency of the blend, and that those particular ingredients from 1 year to the other are as close to each other as possible. So that's one of the things in guaranteeing the availability, the supply, and the quality of that tobacco. So this year we are growing tobacco that's going to be used in 2023, 2024, but we're producing not only for 1 year, we're producing for 2 or 3 years, depending on the lot. And we are buying tobaccos or the tobaccos that we have in store, for example, in the warehouse, were purchased maybe year and 2 years ago, and they're going to be used throughout this year's production and possibly throughout next year's production. The other element that you need to keep in mind is that you continually have to be smoking, and making sure that the profile that you originally designed, and every cigar maker has their own control to make sure that the profile of the cigar is respected as much as possible. You might find certain variations over long periods of time, because as in any agricultural products, tobaccos will change, will be subject to certain conditions, climatological conditions, the weather, the temperature, the rain, or even the soil quality evolves and degrades over time. So you'll have certain variations in the flavors of the tobacco, but when you combine them all and you guarantee enough stock over time, then those variations should be almost unrecognizable, if you may. Now, we get some people asking, why does your Antaño now taste different than what it did in 2006? Well, my usual response is, one, you're not the same person as you were in 2006. Your palate has evolved, your taste buds have evolved, even your ability to smoke and enjoy tobacco or cigars has evolved. And second of all, the cigar probably has evolved too with time. Possibly we've had to make certain changes over time. In fact, one of the reasons that I was late into the conversation was precisely because we had today our strategic contingency meeting during this crisis. And one of the important topics was, how will we guarantee the tobacco availability over time? And how will we guarantee the material availability over time if supply chains are disrupted, if financing is limited, or whatever reason And one of the things that we agreed upon is that we already have contingency plans for our blends, meaning that if we have a cigar that we already have in production, we want to have a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. If, God forbid, a tragedy happens, like it has happened in Nicaragua in the past, for example, in 1998, Hurricane Mitch, a Category 5 hurricane, stationed itself on over northern Nicaragua, including Jalapa, Estelí, that we lost the whole year's production of tobacco. How are we going to manage ourselves? So we do have plan Bs and Cs that guarantee us the consistency of the blend while using alternative ingredients. So you'll never necessarily notice the change, but we will have to manage because, you know, it's tobacco. Tragedies can unfold. Limits are there. You know, my father actually was on the call, remembering how they dealt with the 1998 crisis, which was a threefold crisis. It was an economic crisis because of the end of the cigar boom that basically plummeted demand. It was a humanitarian crisis because we had the hurricane hitting northern Nicaragua, which also translated into a production crisis. And we also had the end of an economic cycle happening at the end of that. So that was another crisis. And we were sort of, you know, undusting the books, the lessons of how we react in uncertain times. And that was one of his comments. You know, I remember during the 1996 boom that we would put a purchase order for certain tobaccos. The next day we would go to pick them up and the tobaccos were no longer available because they sold them overnight to someone who came with more money at that time, and we were left without tobacco. So one of the things that we need to guarantee is that that doesn't happen again, that we are not faced. So it has to do a lot with the planning, the clarity of where you want to go. And I go back to Steve Saka, for example, who is one of our most diligent and precise clients, that he's very keen on his blends. And with him, we have a methodology of working that he prepares himself in advance, way in advance, not only with cigars, but also with tobaccos. The ingredients that we use with him are very well thought out in case of. And he's very good at being 2 steps ahead of everybody in his planning. And we coordinate very well so that we know how we're going to react in the next few months. That's in a normal business as usual context. Right now, there's no rules, man.
One thing he also commented on over on Facebook was that he loves your attention to detail. And as I mentioned in one of our earlier sessions, Marco Pierre White, famous Michelin-starred chef from the UK, he always said perfection is little things done well. And I can fully relate to that. And I think this is what ultimately sets apart the average from the excellent manufacturers in no matter which industry, right? Just a follow-up question on the quality control and keeping the consistency that you mentioned before. Sterling over on Facebook had a question. What happens to the tobacco when you have a so-called bad crop year? How do you deal with that particular tobacco?
The good thing about tobacco is that it's a very noble product in the sense that you never waste it. In fact, if you go to a cigar factory, there's little waste of tobacco other than the veins that we take out of the leaves. But the truth is that we always work with tobacco, even if it doesn't taste well. We always find a way. If it's good quality tobacco, meaning that it was properly grown, it was properly harvested, and it was properly aged and fermented, then we can always do something good with it. If it doesn't taste as we wanted it to taste in our particular blend, then we find an alternative, be it a different blend where we can combine it and we overshadow that deficiency, or we simply make a plan B or a more economical brand that allows us to move that stock of tobacco in a less demanding environment. So all the factories have lower price brands where we use tobaccos that are not good enough to be used in our premium brands. So you always find it's a premium handmade, but it's less expensive one that uses a lot of the tobaccos that don't satisfy the quality requirements, both aesthetically and flavor-wise in the core blends or the primary blends.
Perfect. Johan had a question, and by the way, I have to make a contribution to Johan. He's doing a wonderful job over here in Austria, taking care of not only your brand but a couple of brands, but doing a wonderful job with Joya de Nicaragua for sure here in Austria. Johan, fire away.
Those nice words. Hello, Juan. I have one question. I saw on some American homepages the new copper line. I couldn't find anything on your homepage about it. I couldn't find anything on my price list so that I can order. Can you tell me something about it? Because I read some very interesting things about it. And will it come, or will it be presented to the world at a trade show, or what's your plan with that line? Couldn't find anything on my price list so that I can order. Can you tell me something about it? Because I read some very interesting things about it. And will it come, or will it be presented to the world at a trade show, or what's your plan with that line? Couldn't find anything on my price list so that I can order. Can you tell me something about it? Because I read some very interesting things about it. Or will it be?
Okay, Johan. First of all, I want to add to the compliments to you, and of course to Wolfgang and Marlis coming before you, because Austria has been one of our dearest markets, and I had the blessing and the opportunity to be with you a couple of years ago, or last year I think it was, and it was a beautiful visit, and I thank you very much for the opportunity of having me in Austria, and a shout out to all of our Austrian friends. So Joya Copper, it's a relatively small project that we introduced in partnership with one of retailer or online retailer in the United States. This was a project that initiated as a limited for them exclusively. As we've come along and people have enjoyed the product, I think we'll probably very likely be opening it up to other clients around the world. This is basically an extension of the Joya family, in which we already have Joya Red, Joya Cabineta, Joya Black, Joya Silver, and now Joya Copper is an addition to that. It's intended to be a fuller bodied cigar than the rest of the family. It's gonna be available. We'll have to reach out to Daniel, who's our sales guy, to see if he's willing to offer it to the rest of the world. But I think it surely could be available after the mid of this year. Are you still in line? Yeah.
Yeah, Johan, did you want to add something on that, or all questions answered?
All questions answered. Thank you for the answer.
Perfect. Ricardo, such a pleasure you're joining us yet again over from the UK with the embassy. Please raise your question.
Well, thank you very much, Reinhard, and thank you for this great opportunity and fantastic initiative to give us this privilege to enjoy Juan and to enjoy everybody else's company. I am blessed here to have in my mouth now, in my hands, one of the masterpieces, the numero uno, as well. So courtesy of our good friend, Scott. So thank you, Scott. Juan, always a pleasure to hear you, and even if it's in the distance at the moment. I have to say that I also appreciate your really kind words. I think everyone here knows how generous you are, and that showcases how generous and much you recognize the work of every single person in the whole industry working together. And I have to echo what you say, and from a personal point of view, it is really Joya de Nicaragua, you, your father, and every single person in your family company makes us really proud to be Nicaraguan. So that's something really, really special. And not only that, but as a diplomat, having such amazing products really just makes our work a lot easier. You add an additional strategy to a diplomatic toolkit. It's sort of a cigar diplomacy at its best, thanks to the work that you do. Indeed, it was a year ago, we're at the Ritz, and that was a perfect sort of event that showcased what the value and the strength of your cigars and all cigars really from Nicaragua to help us reach and connect with countries and with everyone around the world. So thank you for that. My question is more, I know one of the things you mentioned is how, and I think what distinguishes us to perhaps other countries is how we're constantly evolving, looking what's next, always trying to move a step, so while keeping and being truthful to our traditions and to the know-how and that passion, going a step ahead and evolving. At this moment, and whilst I understand there's a lot of difficulties because of the pandemic and how you having contingency plans to fend that off and work with it, are there any sort of trends that you're sort of paying attention, and perhaps in terms of what, in the production itself or in the taste itself, are there any sort of trends that you could perhaps share into what are you looking ahead that perhaps could surprise or come in, or anything that anybody's doing that you're really saying, hold on, that's actually interesting. I'm interested in following that trend. So I wonder if there's anything you could give away without giving away too much into what are the trends that are exciting you at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo, and I share the words, my friend. It's good to see you, at least at the distance. That's actually an interesting question, and it also goes back to my previous meeting with our team, because we were having that discussion on what's next. So first of all, I think that the situation in which we are at, there's no precedent to it. I think it's going to be a game changer, not only for the families and the households and us as individuals, as how we behave and take care of our communities and take care of our environment. It also will be obviously a game changer for world economies and for industries. Some industries will grow, some industries will disappear as a result of these many changes. And for a traditional industry like ours, it's an interesting question. But going back a little bit to the past, we have to know that this product in itself, premium, handmade, natural, leaf, long filler cigars, it's a very basic product in its core. You don't need, a scientific development to develop the next blend or the next tobacco crop. It's relatively fairly simple in the sense of what it's made of, what the ingredients are, and how you construct and make the cigar. It's handmade. So the reality is that it's one of those heritage-based crafts that requires a lot of experience, but not a lot of science behind that construction and development. So it's been the same product that has been produced for many, many decades. And what we've done is improve at the micro level, the flavors, the balance, the complexity. But I think that the most important changes don't come from our side, but come from your side, meaning that how you guys appreciate and enjoy, or how cigar lovers start appreciating and enjoy and complementing their way of life with cigars, how they pair cigars with their favorite drinks, how they enjoy pairings with other products, non-traditional products like chocolate or like foods, how we build new experiences with cigars or with enjoyment of cigars. So I think my response to your question, although it's still very early to call, has to do with precisely the way we are communicating right now. I personally saw the first dramatic change in our industry in the past 20 years, the emergence of social media. And social media came to change the way people understood the product, the people communicated about the product, how people share their experiences of cigar smoking and cigar enjoyment. And I remember very clearly the difference that there existed between cigars that were being enjoyed in Europe with cigars being enjoyed in the United States. Before Facebook, before Twitter, before obviously Instagram. When Facebook came to be, I saw immediately, you saw it, but immediately from one day to the convergence of preferences, of flavor, of tastes between what a Spanish smoker was enjoying and what a person from Pennsylvania was enjoying, because they had immediate connection. And the Spanish smoker wanted to try that exclusive product that you could only find in one retail shop in Virginia. And then the US smokers wanted to try that limited edition Spanish version, or the Italian or the Portuguese, because they had no access to it. And they could do it immediately. I personally could connect with smokers that I couldn't connect otherwise, and I could do it through social media directly, instantaneously. now this is another change. Imagine, who would have thought 6 months ago that I could be sitting in my house chatting with all of you via Zoom and enjoying a cigar and talking precisely about the same things we would be talking in person, but now we are sitting all over the world and having this conversation. And I think the change will not necessarily come from our industry. It will come from both the technology and from you guys. Where you guys decide to smoke, how you guys decide to enjoy products, what products you guys are going to decide, what other components, be it humidor, sliders, cutters, will we be enjoying and developing together to make sure that the smoking experience is more interesting. So I think this platform over here, it's a game changer for all of the cigars. So we cancel all our trips, all of our events for the next at least 90 days, probably more. I won't be traveling. Possibly I won't be able to get out from Nicaragua in the next 45 days because there are no commercial flights coming in or out of Central America. But I'm able to be with you, with all of you, through Zoom or through Hangouts or through Facebook or through Instagram. And ultimately, we achieve almost the same at no cost, basically. So I think the potential for us as brands and for you as cigar makers, and for example, this initiative Reinhard has put into place here, collecting people from the industry and bringing them together to cigar lovers, is what's really gonna transform our industry. Not us, not our products, but you guys. So we appreciate all of these efforts because they open up our minds. So now events are going to be held online for at least for a while. I don't foresee a lot of traveling happen. Our industry was based and depending a lot of travels. Yearly, I would travel to Europe 2 or 3 times a year. This year, sadly, I won't be able to hug my friends in Europe, or if we do, it's gonna be once, and even in the United States. But new opportunities arise, and I think this precisely is, in your question, is one of the greatest lessons, not only for cigar industry, for cigar lovers, but for everybody. Suddenly, we see ourselves having more time at home to enjoy the company of our loved ones. We find ourselves being more productive because we don't have to be in meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. We find ourselves productive. We find ourselves connecting more with the people that we care for, with our friends, our retailers, but also our families, our grandparents. Looking at them, we're using FaceTime. It's funny, having to connect with them. Not being able to visit in the face of the tragedy or older has opened up new possibilities and new concerns. And I think that without trying to be too optimistic, I think we have to be hopeful that from this crisis, great opportunities will arise, not only for protecting our communities, but also for making new things, more interesting things. If we're able to connect quicker, more rapidly, and still share the same experience, it's going to be good for everybody. Even if we, travel less and use less carbon to pollute our environment. There are many great things, and in the end, I think that your question expanded to the global economy, to all other industries, will allow us to grow into a better communities locally, but also a better humanity globally. And this connection will facilitate a lot of that.
Juan, speaking of taking chances and making the best out of even challenging situations, you and Joya de Nicaragua, you were one of the first brands to actively go internationally and speaking more to like the European market, and then certainly Asia came along. But what was it like for you at a very early stage to go to these international markets, in particular the European one?
Well, remember, Nicaraguan cigars overall are relatively recent in the European and non-US markets. So Nicaragua right now is the biggest producer of premium cigars in the world, premium handmade cigars in the world, but 80% of that production goes to the United States. We still have a lot of growing to happen in the rest of the world. Although Nicaraguan cigars are exported to more than 90 countries around the world, that amount is still very small compared to what we send to the United States. But in our case, as Joya de Nicaragua, that relationship is different. About 50% of our sales happen outside of the United States. And this has a couple of historical reasons to it. The first one has to do with the 1980s. After the Nicaraguan Revolution, Nicaragua suffered an embargo by the United States against Nicaragua. So when I was growing up in Nicaragua, it was exactly like what you know of Cuba today. You know, exactly the same. The embargo, no access to many things. So the factory that was operating back then had to find alternative places where to sell their cigars. If they couldn't sell it into the United States, they started selling in Spain. They started selling in Italy. Italy not at that time, but they started selling in the Soviet Union, in Germany, in Poland, in Ukraine, in Hungary, in the UK. So even back then, when Nicaraguan cigars were not in the map, Joya de Nicaragua was already present in those marketplaces because of the company had to survive. So they had to find, at that time, because we also, other than the embargo, we also had a civil war happening. Many of those countries didn't pay back with cash, as you would generally do today, but they would pay back the country with oil, with food, and in some cases even with weapons to finance the civil war. So it was a complicated, but from those complications, that particular crisis in that era arose the opportunity for people to enjoy our cigars in Switzerland, for example. We were in Switzerland way before Nicaraguan cigars were recognized as a great product. So that was in the 1980s. During the 1990s, we were able to grow that. And after the U.S. the end of the cigar boom in the late 1990s, one of the strategies that my father smartly followed, together with our team, with Mario and the rest of the team, they decided that they didn't want to depend so much on the United States, precisely to avoid those type of situations. So they aggressively started expanding in Europe. So here in our audience, we have people that we've been working with since late 1990s. So for example, in 1999, we started working with Lubinsky, Mario Lubinsky and Aniello in Italy. We also started working with Dios Tobacco in Austria close to those dates. We were in the UK back then we stopped being in the UK. So as part of a survival way back then was to diversify where our cigars were being sold. So in a way, and this also responds to the question some people make, that what do you think will happen when Cuban cigars are a competition to you in the United States? Well, the same thing that happens to us, because we already are a competition in the rest of the world. We are not afraid. We're compliments. We actually work very good in these markets, and people find in Nicaraguan cigars a fantastic alternative to Cubans, to Dominican, and to wherever they are made. So in the end, for us, it's been a work in progress for many, many decades now. And I go back to my original point. It is thanks to these people, to our partners, to our distributors, that we've been able to continue growing and to continue strengthening and allowing people to appreciate Nicaraguan cigars. And it would be surprising for many of you to know that many, many consumers from around the world don't even know where Nicaragua is, that they've smoked a Nicaraguan cigar.
We had another question coming in through Facebook, like a lot of them actually, but one which was quite controversial. It was regarding, are there any tobaccos from Nicaragua that possibly find their way into Cuba? Because you mentioned Cuban cigars. We had one guy who was curious about that.
Well, I'm not at liberty to disclose that type of information. No, depends. I know for a fact that during the 1980s, Cuba had a dramatic situation with their tobaccos, and Nicaragua exported and supported Cuba during the 1980s with certain types of tobacco. That I can be sure. If lately, more recently, Nicaragua has been exporting tobacco to Cuba, I do not know. To be fair, on the official statistics, you don't see tobacco being exported to Cuba. There are rumors. I've heard probably the same rumors that you guys have heard, but I cannot ascertain if it's. What I do know for sure is that Cuban tobacco per se is not imported into Nicaragua, although some people claim that they use Cuban tobacco in their blends. There are some people that do use Cuban seed brought from the island to grow tobacco in the region, the Dominican, Nicaragua. But I cannot say that Nicaraguan tobacco is used or not used in Cuban blends. It's very hard for me to say that.
Fair enough. Juan, Steve Saka wanted to throw you a softball. He was asking, what is actually your favorite Joya de Nicaragua Liga?
Well, actually, that's a good question, and I've had more time recently to smoke, so I've gone back to some of our older blends, and actually, my father yesterday was smoking a Joya de Nicaragua Celebración from 2006 that he took out from his humidor. And we were discussing, the old brands, because generally when we introduce a new brand, we tend to smoke a lot of it and make it our favorite one in that short period. But for me, my all-time favorite, and the one that if I'm gonna give someone a cigar, it's gonna be that one. It's called Joya de Nicaragua Cabineta, or Joya Cabineta now. And this is a cigar that's it's actually one that we developed together with Steve when he was at Drew Estate. And that's a cigar that I feel comfortable with at any moment in the time. That's the cigar when I'm craving for a cigar, but I don't know what I want to grab. I'll grab a Joya Cabineta. For the evening, I've been enjoying, although I ran out of those recently, the Gran Reserva, Antaño Gran Reserva. And that would be, I think that would be my two top Antaños, my two top Joya Nicaraguan cigars. Yes. I'm also enjoying Mi Querida by Steve Saka as a commercial, although we don't make that one, but I enjoy it.
And I'm pretty sure you're enjoying your numero uno as well, like you're doing right now. We had a question coming in regarding a pairing recommendation with the numero uno, especially in regards to port wine. And for me, I don't know if you enjoy port with your cigars. There's certainly a recommendation that I would consider, and I would say due to the creaminess and these like mellow and creamy nuances that the cigar has to offer, I'd probably go for a tawny port somewhere in the 20 years range, where you get a lot of that nutty, creamy nuances, a little bit of oxidation through the smaller cask being used there. Preferably to a vintage port or something that has a bit more tannin. So I'd go for a tawny, but maybe you have something to add on that.
Well, you are the sensory expert, man. So you answered the question beautifully, more than I could possibly do. But it's always a tough question. We get that pairing question a lot. And I think there's no right or wrong answer. I have certain preferences with certain blends. I don't pair all of my cigars with something in particular. I just have a certain blends that I can pair with them. But the port one is very true. And Mario Perez, who is our factory manager, actually turned us into the port pairing after in one of the trade shows. One of our customers brought us a few bottles of port, and we were able to enjoy the pairing. And it actually, in the I would say the wine families, I think the port would be the most appropriate pairing for any cigar in general. But as you said, the older the ones, the better. I personally don't have access locally to a lot of ports, so I don't get that opportunity. I've been pairing a lot with craft beers. I have a good friend who's a craft beer maker, and he has been giving me some samples to try. And I've been, for example, a Mexican wrapper cigar, the Joya Black in our case, pairs beautifully with a stout, for example. That would be, both are heavy, both are creamy, but both flavorful, and that's a good combination. And of course, we always gravitate towards coffee. Generally, it's a Nicaraguan coffee we pair a lot with, but with rum. Generally, our best recommendation for pairing would be a 4-5 Reserva Especial with a Gran Reserva Flor de Caña or a Centenario Flor de Caña rum, which is made in Nicaragua. It's dark rum. And both of them pair really, really well. Actually, some of you guys have done events here pairing those brands, and they pair beautifully.
I think especially non-alcoholic pairings are super important these days as well, because it just opens up more opportunities to enjoy your cigar even earlier in the day, right? Of course, you could go for a beautiful port or a sherry, or even your Flor de Caña 18 at 11 in the morning. But sometimes you probably want to stay away from the booze and have something non-alcoholic, right?
You have to be careful this time, man. Smoke a lot. Try not to drink too much, because it's
fully agreed. And then a lot of people said that wine can be a challenging pairing with cigars, which I can fully relate to, and I would agree, because I think tannins is always a tricky matter because of the extra bitter nuances. So probably sherry is also a great pairing recommendation, because you can play a lot with the different sweetness levels, from a very crisp, mineral, salty manzanilla, for example, or a dry fino, going all the way up to a floral, slightly fruity moscatel, or even a very sweet Pedro Jimenez. So there's plenty of options there, I'd say.
Yeah, there you go. I agree with the challenge of pairing with wines, and I find that the wine offering has the same challenges as cigars. There's so much variety, and you need to educate yourself very well with the wines that you're drinking, not only because of the varietals, the origin, but also the crop. And it's very hard to recommend a particular wine, especially red wine, with a cigar, because there's so much variation, even in the same varietals. You know, you have one Malbec from the same year, two different brands, and they taste, the acidity is different. So it's very hard to recommend. And I think that's one of the reasons most people stay away from recommending wines, and they go to more standard products like rums and whiskeys to recommend for pairing.
Speaking about like all things sensory and educating your palate, how do you go about that? Do you do any specific training, or do you try to build on your sensory database and your memory, or is it mostly through smoking a lot of cigars and the experience that you gather over time?
Well, it's a combination of all of the above. When I began very early on, I knew very little about, cigars in general. And if I was going to come into the industry and work with it, I had to learn as much as I could. So one of the things, I went buy a couple of books on tasting, wine tasting, whiskey tasting, and all that, and started doing a little bit of the exercises on how to train your smell and your palate to identify certain notes. I am not an expert. I don't call myself a sensorial expert like you do, but I think I developed it good enough to identify the qualities and flavors of certain products, or at least to be critical of those aspects in certain products, drinks, foods, and smokes. But the most important thing for me in smoking was to smoke a lot, and to try to see how different blends from different manufacturers. Because one interesting fact about cigar making, as well as for other wines and everything, is that we use tobaccos that are very similar, if not identical. We might be using the same tobaccos between different manufacturers, but the blends that we produce tend to be very different. So what are the techniques and what are the attributes in that process, in that technique, that allow you to have a different profile in a smoke that uses basically the same components, the same ingredients? How do you go about that is one of the most challenges, and that's the scientific part I was mentioning earlier, that we tend to be very meticulous in to find what are the components or the notes in a particular tobacco. But to get to that, you have to smoke a lot, and you have to try tobaccos individually. You have to smoke the tobaccos together with other tobaccos, and then smoke the blends by itself. So smoking cigars from different origins is very important, and smoking tobaccos from different manufacturers is important. I am a cigar lover, so I enjoy a lot of cigars, especially now the last couple of weeks. I've enjoyed more cigars from other makers than from ourselves, just because I wanted to take the opportunity to appreciate what others are making or what others have done in the past. So the more you smoke, the more practice you have, and the more you're able to identify those things. But as you were saying, your database, your what you have recorded in your head is fundamental, and to be able to expose to different flavors and aromas all over the world is very important too. Just to give you a funny anecdote. A few years ago, we sent Rudy. Some of you know who Rudy is. He's our master event and cigar maker. He's the one that he's rolling in events and everything. So we sent him over to Spain, Switzerland, and Germany. And he was going to do rolling events all over those places. And one of his first messages that we got when he got into Switzerland, and they took him to an event somewhere in the mountains of Switzerland in the summer, is that I am impressed, and we didn't understand that back then, on how my cigars, not our cigars as Joya de Nicaragua, but his cigars, the cigars that he rolls for himself using his tobaccos, taste differently here. And why is that so? Why are the cigars tasting differently in Switzerland than what they taste generally back home in Esteli or in Managua? Remember, this is a guy who makes his own cigars. I'm not talking about the company or anything. So he's rolling his cigars, his preferred blend, and the cigars taste different. And that's when the environment plays an important role. Not only your own taste profile, but the environment too. The height, the temperature, the humidity, your psychological moment or your psychological state of mind at that time. All of that affects the smoking experience. And I tell that story for many people who don't have the opportunity to really appreciate how susceptible cigars really are to the conditions where you smoke them. The cigars that you're smoking probably will taste a little bit different from what I'm smoking, just because of the differences that we have, even in the time that we have you guys are in the evening, probably a little bit cooler. I'm here at noon, sweating in the heat of Nicaragua in the hottest season, the hottest week of the year. So probably tastes different.
That's a wonderful point that you mentioned, and I think this is really something that we as cigar smokers and apasionados can really embrace a bit more, is all the little details and the surrounding aspects of the cigar experience that really make for the overall experience. And our perception, as I always say, it's a multisensory orchestra, and we have all these different instruments, and even little things like our tactile sensations, the way a cigar is presented on a tray, for example, the music, the lighting, all that plays together to make for an overall perception. And this is really something that we can put more emphasis on in order to make it a wonderful overall experience.
And I think that's key. And one of the challenges for all of us in the industry, makers, but also distributors, sellers, and educators like yourself, is to educate people about all of these things. There really is no bad cigar out there. Although there are some cigars that are lower quality, some cigars that don't taste like you would like. But the truth is that there are so many things that go behind in the process of making, but also in the process of smoking the cigars, that it's not as easy to say that one cigar is crap and that's it. There is a cigar for everybody, but not every cigar is for everybody. But you have to be very careful on how we educate people. One of the success, and I don't know if Steve's still watching, but one of his greatest lessons that we've learned from him is that you need to be as diligent in making cigars as you have to be in teaching people about that cigar and teaching people about smoking. It's not just one thing. It's not black and white. It's a combination of colors and experiences that make that activity of smoking enjoyable or non-enjoyable. So I think the education part is key. And maybe going back to Ricardo's question before, one of the things that we need to learn to do much better is to educate more people, because in as much as we can educate more and better people, we're able to obviously sell more cigars, but get more people to enjoy and smoke and perhaps counteract all those negative campaigns around cigar smoking and cigar enjoyment. So I think together, collectively, we can do a great effort in educating people more about cigars and the enjoyment, and about the people also, because with this platform, we're able to interact with people and learn about their experiences also.
Stefan from Belgium, he had a great follow-up question on that. I would love to bring that one in.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid my question is already answered, but I'm still going to ask you, Juan. Do you think retrohaling is really important if you really want to taste cigars? Because I just put it into the group. I don't do it myself. I'm not able to do it myself either. So maybe I should learn. But do you think it's a necessary thing?
It's a tough question, you know, and again, it's nothing black and white. There are people who are more purists in the way they enjoy cigars, the way they cut the cigar, they light the cigar, and you know the frequency at which they puff the cigar and all of this. There are some people that would argue that. There are some people who would say that as long as you enjoy the cigar and that it's giving you what you expect from the cigar, meaning the flavor, the notes, or the aromas, then you're good. I personally do it, and I personally find more. I think it potentializes more the flavors, especially in fuller-bodied cigar, but also in milder cigars, because sometimes you don't get all the notes in your palate. So when you bring it down to your nose, it allows you to touch your sensors there. So it gives you certain notes that you won't easily find just in your tongue and in your mouth. But I don't think it undermines your enjoyment experience not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't force people to do it. Except some people say, you know, if you don't do it, you're not enjoying the cigar. It's a matter of opinion, you know. I personally do it. Most people with experience tend to do it, but some people just don't like it. And that doesn't mean that the experience is less fulfilling.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Stefan. Great to have you on board. Johan, you had another question.
Juan, is there any special kind of beetle or any shape of cigar you would prefer to other cigars, to other shapes?
Actually, yes. I've with time, as one matures and gets more involved and enjoys more and more products, I've come to realize that I'm a small ring gauge cigar guy. I'm enjoying much more the smaller ring gauge cigars than what I thought it was my preferred, the Toro 52, even a 54. I find that my flavors combine better and are easier identifiable in a smaller ring gauge cigars. I think that's one of the success of this particular brand, the ring gauge. And I mentioned how this particular blend behaves better in smaller ring gauge cigars. I've also find very attractive the smoking experience in box pressed. I know many Europe don't like it, and some are seated go against box press cigar. But I feel that box press cigar give you a flexibility that regular cigars don't, and it's the easiness of the draw. I find it very pleasurable on how certain box press cigars smoke. For example, in my case, the 4-5, which is the whole line is box pressed. I enjoy it very much the way it smokes. So I also enjoy it, although it goes against demand in the marketplace. I love torpedoes, traditional, and even if it's box pressed, even better. That's my size. There's something about the way that the shape of the head of the cigar draws or channels the smoke that make it more enjoyable for me. I actually smoked last week. I smoked the 2 number ones by Cigar Aficionado. One was the Anchor by Perez Carrillo, and one was the Cuatro, and by made by AJ. I forgot the name. The Cuatro aging room, Cuatro. I smoked both of them, and I felt that they behaved really well because of the shape, box press torpedoes. And if you see a correlation, also you'll find that the more exotic the shape, also the more people are gravitated towards that, and sometimes tobaccos interact interestingly on depending on the shape. To give you an example, we have in our Cinco Décadas line, which was the celebratory line that we brought up in 2018 for our 50 years, we have the Diadema size there. When we were developing the 2 sizes, one was El General, which is a traditional long Churchill, and the Diadema, I personally thought that the one was going to be more successful was the traditional shaped cigar, but it ended up being the completely opposite. So the Diadema has a particular, the way that the variation in the shape as you smoke and the tobaccos interacting as you smoke it stage by stage on the different shapes of the cigar give you a very interesting smoking, very dynamic smoking experience, which I think a lot of people find interesting. So just to summarize my long answer, my favorite cigars are small ring gauge cigars. Not the Lanceros. I don't like Lanceros that much, but I like Coronas. I like 46, 48.
Juan, I feel like a lot of experienced smokers along their journeys, at some point in time, they do exactly what you described, going back to smaller ring gauges and probably more elegant formats. On the other hand, then you see a lot of the 6x60s that became more popular over the last couple of years. Do you see that reflected in the big audience, like with most of the consumers, or do you think there's a bit of a gap between the more experienced and those people who are probably looking for more bang for your buck?
Yeah, I think there's two what I can see, at least from my experience. Generally, more, if you want to call them connoisseurs, or people who are, more fans and they educate themselves more, they tend to go to smaller ring gauge cigars. The ones who are more mass, the general public tends to want to have a good relationship value and enjoyment experience, so they gravitate a lot towards big ring gauge cigars. But there's also a trend component to it, as there was a trend in terms of the flavor of the cigars and the strength level of the cigars. We came from mild, medium-bodied cigars, then suddenly a spike in super full-bodied, strong cigars. Now we see a gravitation to less strength and more flavor. So people are looking more, even if they're not experts, they're looking more for flavor, looking more for complexity and balance than to nicotine punch. They're looking for enjoyment more than nauseating experiences because of the strength of the cigar. So I think it's a wave. People gravitate, the shapes, the preferences are moving. Right now is a big trend towards Connecticut shade cigars, of course. That will probably change in the next few years when something new comes to in vogue. But I think that it also varies a lot depending on the marketplace. Certain places, even in one country, the preferences vary. The United States, which is a huge country, the preferences in the East Coast are different from the preference in the West Coast or in the center of the country, both in terms of strength level, but also in terms of the size of the cigar. So what we sell well in Florida is not necessarily what we sell well in Texas, for example.
Yeah. Agnello wanted to make a comment. Agnello, good to see you, my friend. Are you in the car yet again?
Voila. No, I'm not in the car. It's not cold today, so I can say on the open, so it's okay. No, it was about the old question about the retro inhale. If I can go back to that point, there is two big difference, if I can, because it's just going out of the interview to Juan, sorry. The point is that in the mouth, we have only the taste, and the aroma has to go through the nose. Second thing is that the cigar is something completely different from any other product that is tasted, because for the wine, for instance, when you swallow, the aroma goes up in the nose, and those are only gas. For the cigar, you just blow the complete smoke through your nose, and this is the only product that you do this. And doing that, you affect the nerve trigeminal. That is something that it gives a lot of information to the brain. So it's not only for enjoying; it's very helpful for understanding the cigars, because you feed the brain with a lot of information, and this is something that should be, how to say, try it. If a tester wants to be a full tester, has to experience this, because there are a lot of information coming from this. Sorry for going back to this topic.
And I agree. And I think it's completely scientifically accurate. But not everybody wants to be an expert taster, and that was my point in allowing people to enjoy to the point where they feel comfortable enjoying. I think you are that type of person that you want to go to the detail to learn about the flavor and the notes. But the truth is that not everybody's like that. Not everybody's like most of you. Cigar smokers sometimes are very simple in the way they want to appreciate the product. And again, there's people like you and people on the other extreme. They just don't, they just want to smoke a cigar.
Yeah,
And
but Juan, but there is one point. I think that trying to become a good tester is trying to get their freedom, because people that understand the cigars, that they're free from the influence of the mass. I know you understand me. If you are not in the cigars, you just try to smoke what you see on magazine, what people say it's good cigars. When you start developing your sense, your I don't know what you like, what you really like, you cannot listen to people because you are on your way. So you are free to choose the product you like.
it's a good, yes. And you said it. It wasn't me. You said it.
Well, but thanks for your comment on yellow, and thanks for the wonderful explanation. Scott had a question.
Right, good evening, sir. How you doing?
Doing good. Happy to see you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the darkness. Obviously, you like to collaborate with like people like me with my Sheraton. Thank you. So tell me, if you were given a free reign, who would you collaborate with?
Interesting. There's one thing that we wanted to do a few years back, and we still have it as a plan. We're not sure if we're gonna do it, but we wanted to bring together the people whose life or whose vocation to cigars has been influenced by Joya de Nicaragua. So our idea was to create this concept of collaboration, but more than a collaboration, more an interpretation. So for example, there are some people in the industry, I won't give names because, I have respect to them, whose first cigar was a Joya de Nicaragua. The first cigar they actually smoked was a Joya de Nicaragua. Very well-known people in the industry, and whose point of reference is a Joya de Nicaragua. So our idea is to give them the opportunity to interpret how do they see a Joya de Nicaragua from their own palate. For example, someone who I would really like to collaborate is Dion Jolito, because he has a lot of respect to our brands, and I think he has a great palate also. One of the people who I respect the most in the industry, we already collaborate with, and that's Steve, that he's online. But I think that that goes beyond a collaboration in a particular product, because we work together, so we learn from each other more than we could possibly do in a collaboration. We tend to be very careful with collaborations because sadly our industry doesn't have a good history, sorry for redundancy, a good history on collaborations. There are just a few exceptions of good experiences, but people tend to go out of their way very, very, very quickly after they collaborate. So we tend to be very careful in who we partner with, because if we want to work with someone, we want to make sure that the experience is long lasting and is sustainable. But going back to the collaboration part, if I was given free range, I would definitely knock on Dion's door and ask him to do an interpretation of what his experience is on Joya de Nicaragua. I would also give Steve more range. And finally, I would also like to collaborate a lot with Willie from Blue State. I think he's an interesting, he has a very interesting palette. He comes from a very interesting experience, and he's been able to work in different spheres that would add a very interesting complement to our mutual experience. So I think that would be something very curious to see how people would react to a collaboration between Joya de Nicaragua and Willie from Blue State, or something more deep than with Steve.
Andre, good to see you again on the call. Andre from Sweden. Would you like to make a little comment? Andre, I just unmuted you. If you want to add something, please feel free to throw it in. I just saw you put something in the chat box. Well, maybe then, Johan, in the meantime, you can ask a question and Andre can chime in later on.
Juan, one question. When I attend the IPCPR in 2017, a lot of people were using Mexico San Andres wrappers. The next year, the industry switched to Ecuador Sun-grown, and in 2019, it was the Connecticut shade wrappers. Who is making those trends? Because you really could see from year to year, all companies try to bring out cigars with the same wrapper. It's like in fashion. Is there a trend, or how does it come that a lot of companies in 1 year, a lot of different companies from different countries bring out Mexico, the next year Ecuador, and the next year it's Connecticut? Who is making this trend, or who is creating this trend?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's one responsible. I think it's, as you said, a trend thing. There are a combination of things. For example, we came out with Antaño Ceté last year, and together with Numero Uno, both were using a Connecticut shade grown in Ecuador. But our biggest production is already using that wrapper, and our biggest selling cigar, which is the Joya de Nicaragua Clásico, which sells around the world, already had that. So technically, we're not sort of bringing something new because we already had that tobacco in stock. I think there's 3 elements to that question. The first one has to do with there are certain manufacturers who, take the lead in making certain products with those tobaccos. Then, and most importantly, I think there are certain tobacco growers and tobacco producers that produce that leaf that ends up being great and starts promoting it with their clients. For example, in Mexican San Andres, not a lot of production that you have. There's just quite a few tobacco growers, but they deal with most of us, and they come out and say, this tobacco is great, and we taste it, and we probably will taste it all simultaneously, and we end up using it all together in some of our blends. And the third part is it's driven by consumers and media. Certain preferences as the palate for people evolves and changes, and what they're looking for in the cigar also evolves. I think there's a gravitation to demand more this type of cigars. So in certain cases, it might be a response from our side to what we see is a demand in the marketplace. Sometimes you go to a market and they say, what's selling really well? This brand. Oh, okay. And you think, okay, I don't have a product like that in my portfolio. Should I include it? And that, may be a cigar that uses a similar tobacco than that. So we decide to include it or not. So in other cases, the decision of the manufacturer is to complement or to strengthen their own portfolio. And just to give you an example, we have the Antaño, the Clásico already in our portfolio. And we went using almost all of the wrappers available in the marketplace. And we ended up using, once again, our original tobacco is the Connecticut shade wrapper. So it's a combination. I personally don't think that there's one responsible individual. I think it's a combination between the availability of tobaccos and the work that the growers are doing, the leadership of certain manufacturers, but also the demands of the market and what the media tend to push also as something that's becoming popular. And I think that's relatively normal. I think that in the end, we're a relatively small industry. We're almost a niche product, if you think about it, when you think of the amount of smokers around the world. So just in this call, we have a lot of influencers of our industry from different parts of the world. And some of you might dictate to us, what's booming in our market is this. And, you'll probably tell it to us, but you also probably say it to other people in the industry, and we'll all follow suit.
We had a wonderful question from John over at Facebook, and he asked, how far can the industry go in terms to coming up with new blends before it actually goes full circle yet again?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
So how far can the industry go with creating new blends and creating new cigar experiences before you actually start going back and taking it all full circle?
If we limit the conversation to premium natural tobacco, and we don't talk about flavorings and infusion, which is a separate category, the circle that it's very limited. When you think about all of the tobaccos have been already used. You don't see new discoveries of new varieties of tobaccos happening. You see popularity picking up of certain tobaccos once in a while. We have limited amounts of wrappers that we use for premium handmade cigars. You have Havana Criollo, grown in Nicaragua, grown in Honduras, or grown in Ecuador. You have broadleaf. You have Connecticut, grown in different regions. You have Brazilian, Matafina. You have San Andres from Mexico. You have Indonesian wrapper. You have your portfolio of options is fairly limited. And when you go to fillers, the same thing. But the big difference is how do you exploit those components such that one cigar that uses the same wrapper between each other, for example, these two cigars, the Numero Uno and the Antaño CT use the same wrapper, but they use different binders and different fillers. So the combinations that you have to exploit one particular ingredient, it's almost exponential when you think about regions, varietals, crop years, and primings. And when you go to the detail, you have many, many options that you can work with. So even if we go full circle, let's say using the same varieties, the way that we use in those varieties may be different. And as people, again, go back more to the basics of flavor, complexity, we start to put much more attention into the way we combine those ingredients, even if it's the same set of ingredients, the way we, at the detail micro level, we start deploying those ingredients might make a huge difference in the profile of the cigar itself. So we may not end up going full circle a couple of times, but we end up going to a different profile. So to land that question, our blend from Joya de Nicaragua from 1968 used a Havana Criollo wrapper from Nicaragua. Now it uses a Connecticut shade wrapper because of historical circumstances, but it used Nicaraguan fillers. It's basically, we have a couple of cigars like that in our portfolio, but the way we've aged the tobaccos, the way we fermented the tobaccos, the way we've combined the proportions of those leaves in the tripas with the binder, all change the profile of that cigar. So that original cigar might have different transformations as we move and deploy those ingredients differently.
And then you always have the individual factor of course, the terroir, the place where it is produced, and the people behind it, right? Speaking of terroir, what would you?
I should ask something more. The personal level, because you might have smoked one, but you haven't smoked all of the variations from all of the manufacturers that allow you to experience that tobacco in different ways and in different perspectives.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of terroir, like if we take a brand that is the jewel of Nicaragua, in your opinion, what would be your personal handwriting or the signature of Joya de Nicaragua, that particular expression of terroir that you want to bring to the table?
Oh, without a doubt, it would be the roughness and the hardness of the soil from Esteli. The soil from Esteli, if you ever have the opportunity to be in a tobacco field or any field in Esteli, you will see that the soil is very muddy. It's almost like rocks when you see it. It's very rich. Esteli, like all of the other regions, tobacco growing regions in Nicaragua, is a valley. So when you have all of these regions like Jalapa, Condega, and Esteli, you have soil that tends to be very rich, not only because of its original volcanic origin, but also because of its location. Valleys that when it rains, it drains all the minerals and nutrients to the bottom of the valleys. So you tend to have soil that's very rich in nutrients, in minerals, and gives you the strength level and the potency of Nicaraguan tobacco. So if you would ask me, Esteli, and in particularly the Ligero from Esteli would be the best expression of Nicaraguan terroir that we can have. And that's a little bit of the pepperiness, but the sweetness that you also get from that thickness of the leaf, the power that it gives you, and the amount of nicotine that it delivers to your body.
Andre took that consideration a step further. I'm gonna raise the question for him. He said he's on his dinner, so enjoy, my friend. But we're glad you're on the call. He was mentioning that there will possibly be many new countries coming into the into the cigar industry, like new countries producing tobacco to use? Because he mentioned that back in the days, there were so many different countries producing tobacco, like even Austria, which you probably wouldn't consider a classical origin for premium tobacco. Do you see a trend on that with new countries chiming in?
Well, it's hard to say. Tobacco growing and the perfection of the technique takes a long time. None of the countries that are mainstream today did it from one day to the other. From Cuba, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, the United States, Indonesia, even Mexico. They've been growing tobacco for a while, and they've been improving tobacco for the technique for a while. Tobacco is grown in many places. What the difference is the type of tobacco that you're growing. In the case of cigars, you need to grow dark tobacco that you generally cure by air. And this is tobacco that's, I think in Germany, you also grow tobacco, but not necessarily used mainstream. They generally use it for more machine-made and mass-market products. But to deliver the flavor and the complexities that you want in a premium cigars, you generally have to have certain environmental and soil characteristics that countries in the Caribbean tend to deliver and countries in the tropic tend to deliver. So I personally don't see a lot of new countries coming in line for production. We've used tobaccos from non-traditional places like Colombia and Costa Rica. They're good tobaccos, but you won't see them replacing Nicaraguan tobacco or Ecuadorian tobacco anytime soon.
Andre just made a further comment that there's 2 cigar growers and producers in Sweden, but most of the tobacco that's produced in Sweden is used for snus, he was mentioning. But yeah, I mean, going back to what you just said, it certainly takes much more than just starting to grow tobacco in order to become a relevant part in the industry. Yes. There was another question coming up from Riot in Dubai. Please raise your question, Riot. Great to have you.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Juan. Hope you're doing well. Long time.
Long time, my friend.
Excellent. I'm going to ask 2 questions. One is on a happy note, and the other one is not on a so happy note. The first one is, I know Puro Sabor is very close to your heart. How did it go this year? It's unfortunate that I wasn't able to make it, and it was the first one after a year or 2 cutoff. How did it go this year, and how are you expecting it to evolve next year to pick up the fact that it's happening again? That's the first question. The second question is, I was earlier on a call that was talking about what's happening in the industry and the impact that what we're going through right now with the virus and all having. And you mentioned earlier, it reminded me of it. You mentioned earlier that you had a meeting about the plan B and being ready for like a doomsday scenario kind of a thing. How is this going to impact Nicaragua, and how is this going to impact supplies and stocks and inventory, and how is this going to impact what we're going through right now with the virus and all? I think it's bouncing. And you mentioned earlier, it reminded me of it. You mentioned earlier that you had a meeting about the plan B and being ready for like a doomsday scenario kind of a thing. How is this going to impact? Yeah, so how's this going to impact supply of the cigars, and how's this going to impact what was just collected in terms of the tobacco recently picked? I don't think I can hear you.
Thank you for the question, brother, and good to see you. I know the time difference there. I don't know what time is there, but thank you for.
It's almost midnight, but I'm willing to stay till 3 o'clock in the morning to listen to you, buddy.
Thank you, brother. So Puro Sabor was actually a great experience. This year, after an interruption of 1 year, we held it at the beginning of this year. It was great. It was more limited in the terms of the amount of people who came, but it was a fantastic experience. We were able to celebrate and join together after a while with all of the industry. And well, sadly, it was the last time we got to see a lot of our friends. Because after that, February came and March, and we haven't been able to be around. And up to today, there's a plan to continue holding the festival next year. think it's going to be the third week of January 2021. I expected it to continue to be in a small scale because one of the limits that we have in Nicaragua has to do with capacity of hotels and services, in Esteli in particular. So we get to about 200 people, and that's the tops that we get. But it's good because if you read about the festival, everybody gets the opportunity to meet and to hang out with cigar makers from Nicaragua, and we get to be together. I think the size of the festival is perfect. With your second question, it's a little bit complicated. We are hopeful, we are optimistic. We feel that today people are having a little bit more time to enjoy cigars, but that doesn't mean that in the next few months that's going to be the truth. Locally, we have a couple of situations that we need to be concerned about. One, of course, and it's our priority, is the health and safety of everybody down here. Cigar factories are places where there's a lot of people in relatively close distance. In our case, we have about 300 people in our factory. There are some factories that have 2,000, 2,500 people in their floor. So our first concern, and this is something that we collectively activated very early in March, was to guarantee the safety of our people. Guarantee the safety of them first and the employment second. So right now we decided to close early for Holy Week, which is the current week. We are on holidays, so nobody's working, but we decided to close early last week to make sure that people stayed home and stayed safe and take care of their families. Of course, it's not easy because people in the industry, the workers particularly, earn as they produce. So now production means that we have to subsidize that with advanced vacation and payments. But at least we are able to guarantee the safety and security of everybody. We also have to guarantee the safety of our most vulnerable, the people more risky, or at more risk, the people who have health issues and the ones that are older, more than 60 years old. So we need to take special care of them. So that's the first concern that we have. And that's the most important, to be honest, to make sure that with the limits that we have in Nicaragua in the terms of the limits of our healthcare system, if Italy, Spain, the US, and most of the world is going through this, there's nothing special in Nicaragua that would, make it different. So we need to be very conscious of the limits that our healthcare system has to take care of our population. So the first concern is at the factory level. The second concern is at the community level, that we guarantee that our people, our personnel, and their families are safe. So the question is, how are we going to deal with this as the situation evolves and escalates? And it's a tough question, and we're basically deciding day by day. It's a weekly decision. Today, we're deciding how we're going to behave next week. And on Monday, we're going to evaluate how things are. We're probably going to be changing the way we operate. We have 0 visits to the factory. I'm not visiting the factory next week because, of course, I'm separate, and I don't want to be exposed or expose the rest of the people if I bring whatever, the sickness. So we're limiting the access of people. People are working who can work remotely. But we're also spacing out people so that we have at least a meter and a half between them. We're also creating roles, meaning that instead of everybody working together, we'll probably have time schedules. So a group of people work at that time, a different group will work at different times. So that's a third concern, how to operationally make it happen when we have a lot of people coming into the, we have daily monitoring of temperatures of everybody coming into the factory. We've tried to solve as much as we can the situation. Now, on a larger scale, meaning logistically, for example, one of our concerns has to do with the interruption of the supply chains, both of materials coming in, tobaccos coming in, and of products going out from us. Remember, we export to around the world. Right now, every single commercial airline is not flying into or out of Nicaragua. That means that we have to rely either on boats or on UPS cargo or similar couriers. So it's a logistical problem because even if we are able to get the product out of Nicaragua, that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to get it into the different countries where the product is heading, another concern has to do with the speed of this. As some of you are going out of the crisis, how they call it, the curve, will probably be coming into it later as this spreads out. So even though if you guys reach normality sooner, we'll probably be facing challenges and bigger challenges as if we don't take the proper measures with enough time. I don't see relevant interruptions in terms of tobacco growing. Thank God the agricultural sector is not, we don't see any important effect. We see mostly in terms of the logistical parts of getting the products into the country and getting it out of the country. The not so bad part of this is that everybody is facing the same challenges. The great opportunity of this is that we're able to learn of other experiences that are doing and handling the situation. So we're basically learning from all of you. So we expect that the effects will be reduced just because you guys are doing smarter things ahead of us. But yes, it's going to be challenging. For many of us, we see the 2020 as basically a mute year, to say the least. We're going to be limiting our expenses in terms of travel, in terms of marketing, because we really don't know what the long term holds for us. And for us, the long term is basically until December 2020. So we're basically thinking in the very short term, day by day, week by week. Our medium term is going to be the next 3 months, and the long term is from July onward. So in the meantime, we're going to keep making the best decisions that we can to make sure that we protect our people, that our clients and customers are safe, that nobody's exposed unnecessarily, and that we guarantee the safety and the livelihood, because there's this situation has two dimensions. Well, it has multiple dimensions, but the most important one is the current health humanitarian crisis, and the second stage is the economic crisis and the subsequent humanitarian crisis that results from the economic crisis. Every country is going to deal with that differently. In our case, unfortunately, as we are a developing nation, we don't have the means and the resources that many developed countries have. For example, when you talk to some of your countries, you have incentives or subsidies or rescue mechanisms that the government will put into place for businesses, for the trade, for distributors. We don't have any of that. We are basically left to our own devices and making the best decisions that we can. So in a way, turning that conversation to the end, it's important for all of you to know that eventually all of you guys will have to be aware of the limits that countries like ours, Dominican, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua will face. And you're going to have to pitch in a way, pitch in and support the efforts that we have to implement collectively as industries and as cigar makers to make sure that we support the livelihood of the people that ultimately guarantee us the product that you guys enjoy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raj, for your questions. It's incredible. We're already 2 hours into the call yet again. And Juan, I so appreciate all your thoughts and your insights and the wonderful stories that you're sharing with all of us. Guys, over on Facebook, here at the lounge, it's always such a pleasure to have you. And this is really becoming a global movement. And we're so grateful to bring all these people from the cigar family together. Please make sure that you sign up and get all the information for our upcoming events. I would like to let you know that on Friday this week, it's Good Friday, we have Rocky Patel joining us. Then Easter Sunday, we're going to have a special raffle together with Daniel Marshall. And then next week on Wednesday, we have Dion from Illusion Cigars. So we're very much looking forward to a couple more wonderful sessions. So Juan, I would like to ask you a couple, one more final question. And guys, if you still have any questions, be it over on Facebook or here at the lounge, please raise them, put them in the chat box, unmute your microphones, and we're glad to have all these wonderful questions and conversations coming up. Juan, in the book, another wonderful quote that I found quite right at the beginning, it says, "It's lifeline, its struggle, its will to forge ahead and renew is Nicaragua itself." With such a prolonged history, so many struggles, so many ups and downs you were going through. Where do you feel in that evolution process are you right now, and where in that evolution process is Joya de Nicaragua?
I think that's a question that's keeping most of us awake at night. Not only the safety and the health of our families and friends, but also that I think that quote is from our dear friend Nick Hammond, who wrote the book for us. But it summarizes, the hope that we engender, that every challenge and every obstacle and every crisis brings new and greater opportunities to become better companies, but most importantly, to become better persons, better human beings. So I feel that the greatest lessons that we as a humanity, a global collective, can take today is that we have a responsibility not only to this planet, but also to each other, and that we need to take care of each other and be responsible beyond the political sphere and be responsible. So we are at the point in our evolution where we are more conscious about the human aspect of what we do. Not that we were not in the past, because this is a very human product. It's made by humans to be enjoyed by humans. This is not a machinery. There's not a machine involved in making this product. Only people are involved in making this product. But now we have to think about this product in a different way. You know, how much does this product contribute to improve the life of people, not only our workers, but also of you guys, of the trade and the consumer? It's a tough question, and I think we're gonna be part of the debate moving forward on what the future of our humanity is, what the future of our global efforts to make humanity a more just, equitable, fair, more loving place. It's key. There's a great debate nowadays on how this crisis has unraveled the egocentric or the selfishness on everybody, because everybody's worried for ourselves. But the truth is, there are many, many, many more people worried about the rest. And I think we are at that stage as a company too, concerned not about the business itself, but about the people, and about you guys, and about our personnel, our customers, and our suppliers also. So I think it brings us back. It grounds our feet to the ground once again, in the sense of the importance of people. And if I can bring back something to the book, is that it's centered about the people, on the people, the story of resilience of the people. The book itself is about resiliency, but resiliency is not a value that a company holds. It's not a value that a building holds. It's a value that people hold, that we all have inherent in us, and that's something that we need to practice. And I think that all of us here and all of us all over the world are practicing that. We're gonna come out of this stronger. We're gonna become out of this better. We're gonna be a better race to the globe, to the planet. And I think that's whatever the business you're in, whatever profession you're in, you're forced to have that conversation, or at least think about those challenges. And if I may just close that with always regarding the book, is that, there's hope. Maybe some of you guys were not used to this level of uncertainty and crisis, but when we practice it in the past, like we have in Nicaragua, it sort of becomes another opportunity, another great opportunity. And that's what the book is about the challenge of tomorrow. The darkest hours show you the brightest that you have in the future. And that's something that all of us need to be conscious about, and share it in our families, share it with our kids, share it with our loved ones, and share it with our colleagues and workers. All of us, in a way, are responsible of many, many people beyond our household, beyond our family. And we need to share this commitment on a better tomorrow with everybody, at the cost of, terrible human crisis.
As you perfectly mentioned, it's about the people. It's about standing together, and even in challenging times, still keeping a positive mindset and a positive spirit, and enjoy the wonderful things that we all have, and these wonderful conversations that we can still have, even if it's virtual. But it's been such a pleasure, and I couldn't think of a better finishing note to end this conversation on. Juan, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. It's been a tremendous pleasure and honor. thanks to all of you guys for tuning in. Juan, I know you still have some left in your numero uno, so we're gonna keep the lounge open if you guys still wanna stay with us for a bit longer. This is a perfect opportunity to still ask some more questions, and we're gonna say goodbye to all the people over on Facebook. Juan, please, yeah.
I just want to express my gratitude on behalf of everybody here in Nicaragua, my family, and our team, for all of you for not only being here and having this conversation, but for all of the love and the support that you've provided us during the past few weeks. A lot of people have been concerned, and I want everybody, to be aware that we're in Nicaragua, though we're not on a particular situation. We're very grateful to everything, for your business, for enjoying Nicaraguan cigars. So we hope that we continue moving forward, and we'll see each other. We'll be seeing each other very often. So enjoy the rest of the lounge and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank
you.
Can I get pleasure and all yours?
Can I get a hello from you? Can I get a picture from all of you saying hello? Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks to everybody tuning in on Facebook. All the best to you guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And please join us again on Friday, 8 p.m. Central European Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. See you soon.